I wanna take a walk around the world. I wonder if it'd do me any good. Until I get some money in my pocket, then I guess I'll just walk around my neighborhood. But I wanna be good so bad. Wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. Wanna be good so bad. But bad desire's all I've ever had. I wanna take a ride up in the sky. Watch the aeroplanes just pass me by. I wanna see a Lear jet liner take a dive, just to show these people what it means to be alive. But I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I've ever had.
Hi, everyone. My name's Caitlin. I'm an alcoholic, mostly, but I would also identify as an addict. I am happy to tell all of you that I prayed right before this meeting, so everything that I say, I'm sure, will be the divine word of God. That's a joke. Anyway, I'm really excited to be here. Anytime I get to do anything that's affiliated with Dopey, feels like an honor. And I just have a lot of respect for all of you guys. And, it's interesting because I've been reflecting a lot over the past couple days because I knew that I was going to be doing this. And I don't really plan what I'm going to say so much as I look over everything in my head, what's led me up to this point, how's everything different now. And my life is really good right now. That's what the conclusion I came to today. I had so much gratitude preparing for this today. Just in reflecting on everything that's happened over the past couple of years for me. And right now, my life is really, really good. I learned a while back that I feel like some of the best lessons that I've learned in my life have been things that people have been telling me my whole life since I was a little kid, like love thy neighbor as thyself. And one that has always driven me crazy has been you have to change. It's all about perspective. It's all about how you're looking at your life, how you're looking at the situation. If you're unhappy, you got to change your perspective. And I still kind of hate the way that that's worded, because I feel like that's a really simple way of being like, you need to have a complete psychic change. And because that's what really opened my eyes to that, to an understanding of what that really means. And so I guess I'll start off just telling you guys a little bit about like my upbringing. I'm a military brat. So I was born in Seoul, Korea on the 4th of July in 91. And we were there a couple months. We moved to a bunch of different places when I was very, very young. I lived in Germany for a couple of years. So when I was a little kid, I got used to moving frequently. But we ended up sort of settling in Illinois when I was about 8, I want to say. So I was still pretty young. And then I grew up in the same house there. So my childhood, when I was really, really young, was really wonderful. And I have really fond memories of being outside and being in nature. Especially, I feel like I grew up in a Catholic household, and we did go to church every week, and I never was into that really. But I grew up believing in the Catholic God and believing that if I didn't do the right things, then I was going to go to hell, you know, as a lot of us did. But yeah, I think something that I realized when I got sober was that my ability to believe in a higher power was not that difficult for me. And I think it's because of how spiritually connected I was as a child to my surroundings and to nature and to animals. That just really has resonated with me since I've gotten sober. But when we moved to Illinois, I don't know if you guys can hear the traffic, but it's kind of loud here. So when we moved to Illinois, something happened. September 11th happened, and my whole life sort of changed. Like, I can look back in hindsight and see how the events of my life sort of took off from there in a lot of ways. Because we were living at home. My dad was in the Air Force, and he was deployed on several tours. I think like 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in Baghdad. And he was gone a lot. And I grew up being used to my dad being gone on trips all the time in the military. But this was different. And there was a sense of like knowing that it was dangerous to a degree, and also just the length of time that he was gone was a lot longer with each of these deployments. And he was shot down by a surface-to-air missile over Baghdad and successfully ejected out of his plane, and was uninjured remarkably. And we sort of found out about it from, I think, through the news, and we didn't know what happened to him at first, but it became this huge thing, you know, in this like small town where, you know, my dad survived. And so he was kind of like the local hero for a while, and he's not really into accolades and all that. So it was sort of uncomfortable. And everything in my parents' relationship went south pretty quickly after that happened. And I think that they had problems to begin with, but I think this ultimately set everything off. And I say all of this because not that it's, I think like something that I've really struggled with in sobriety, especially early sobriety and being an alcoholic, is like, I oftentimes feel like I have to validate my experience. Like, this happened to me, you know, this happened to me and this happened to me. And so that's why I turned out this way, or that's why I drank. And I'm not saying that it's one way or the other. And I think what happens to us, you know, to a degree isn't that important. But for the sake of telling my story, and if anybody else is able to relate, I do like to share these kinds of things. Because maybe it's something someone needs to hear. I don't know. Maybe I just needed to say that out loud for myself. But anyway, so my dad pretty much kind of disappeared. He went MIA a little bit for a while there, and my mom sort of went crazy. And so I bring this up because her and I had a really, really unhealthy, unstable relationship for most of my growing up. And I don't want to say that she was an alcoholic, but my mom drinks a lot. And all the people in my family have always been huge drinkers. You know, anytime we have parties or anything, Everybody's always drinking a lot. It's totally fine. I'm sure that there are people in the family who drink more than others, but I've never witnessed someone drinking to the degree that I was drinking, except for my mom. I guess at this time in my life when I was younger, she would drink a lot. She would often get mad at me for no reason. I would get yelled at every day for things that were incredibly trivial. And it sort of got to the point where my brother even told his friends that she hated me because that's just how she acted around me all the time. And she was often drinking. And I say this because I realized at one point, because she used to upset me so much, and I realized at one point that that I wasn't doing anything wrong. You know, like I was a good kid. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs in high school. I got pretty good grades. I never failed anything. And so I decided that I wasn't going to let her break me like that anymore. And I sort of developed this tactic of when someone makes me uncomfortable, when somebody's coming at me, I'm just going to turn it around, and as much hate as I feel like I'm receiving in my heart, I'm going to turn that around on them, you know, and I'm going to reflect that much hate back to them because they deserve that. Which is a really, really healthy coping mechanism, as you can imagine. But anyway, I went through high school. Like I said, I never drank in high school until the very end. One day, me and my friend bought a fifth of vodka, and we drank the whole thing in 30 minutes, just taking shots one after the other. And I got so sick. It was terrible. I had to call in work the next day. Luckily, my mom wasn't home. But the way that made me feel, it was like I didn't care about anything. I didn't have a care in the world. And I also want to say, maybe I'll bring that up later, I guess. I don't know. So I went to college. I drank a lot in college as well. I honestly kept it mostly to the weekends. So I felt like I drank like a normal college student. I was never able to not overdrink. Every time I drank, I always drank to the point of either blacking out or not being able to drink anymore. And always waking up in the morning and hearing about the crazy weird stuff that I would do. And it almost became like a game. And I've thought about this a lot, and part of me thinks that it's because my inhibitions, I hadn't let go of them so much yet at that point, that I just didn't do as many, like the stupid things that I did increased over time as my drinking got worse, you know? So anyway, I was able to get through college with my degree. And in my opinion, even though I drank a lot, it wasn't totally out of control yet. But I went to school for acting. I auditioned to do an acting program. I guess I should say, sorry, I might be jumping around a little bit. I guess I should say there's been 2 points in my life where I've come into a group of people and I've suddenly finally felt like I belonged. And the first time was when I was in high school and I started theater. Up until that point, I had just swam competitively. My parents were like really strict, conservative, hardworking Midwestern folks. So, you know, they wanted us to do sports, and like they were really all about like our body image and like how we're presenting ourselves to the world. And that's how me and my mom butted heads a lot, you know, as I was a little bit weird and I like to dress a little bit different. But I remember when I did theater for the first time and being around all those kids, I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. I finally felt like I wasn't that outsider friend. And I know what y'all know, that I know y'all know what I'm talking about, like where you're in a group of friends and there's either that one person that doesn't really fit in that well, or you're that person. But I always was that person until I finally started doing theater. And so I quit swimming, much to my mom's chagrin. And I just focused on that. And it really helped to open me up in a lot of ways. So I went to college for theater. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting. I studied abroad at the Moscow Art Theater School in Russia, which was an amazing experience. All the cliche, typical study abroad bullshit that you hear people say is true. And it's funny because when I was in Moscow, you can buy a fifth of vodka in a glass bottle for less than $5 in Russia. It's amazing. It's literally cheaper than water there. And that was the first time that I started drinking. First of all, that I could buy booze on my own because I was still underage, but you can buy it in Russia. But I would buy it and I would tell myself, I'm just going to drink to this point on the bottle. And I would always end up drinking, and I would always wake up in the morning and more of it would be gone. And I had a couple scary experiences while I was there. But by the grace of God, nothing bad, nothing terrible happened to me. And that's a very common theme in my story, looking back on it all. I would say that I'm a low bottom. Things could have gotten way worse for me by the time I got help. But the situations that I put myself in could have very easily turned out very bad in hindsight. And I use the word God because everyone knows what that means for the most part. I don't believe in a religious God really anymore. I believe in a higher power. But the synchronicity of my life and the things that have happened and the way that I've been protected in a lot of situations is kind of amazing to me. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So anyways, I moved to Chicago after I graduated, and I started working in the service industry and trying to audition for agencies. And it's funny because I remember my first serving job was downtown in the Loop. And I remember after work, everybody would hang out and they would just get wasted every day after work. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so weird. Like, they don't have like any aspirations. Like, they don't have anything they're doing. And it was such a, like, in hindsight too, like, it was so egotistical of me here I am, like, I've just graduated from college and I've moved to the city. And I'm like, wow, like, these people don't have anything they need to, more important to do than this, because it did not take me very long to get sucked into that lifestyle. And I loved it. We would work till like 3 a.m. and we'd get off and we'd go and we'd drink and we'd party and pass out and get up the next day and do the same thing. And I remember having brief periods at that time, because at this time I still wasn't drinking. I didn't drink all day, like, I drank most days out of the week, but it was never while I was working or anything. I also smoked weed every day. I don't know if that is really important. But again, it just kind of goes along with the industry lifestyle. Let me think. So I was working this job. So it's interesting. I'll tell one little snippet story here, I guess, because I think it's an interesting one and it's always stuck out to me. I started, I filtered through a couple jobs. In hindsight, I had to do that because of my drinking. One job I showed up at totally wasted one night because some girl had stolen money from me. And I berated her in the restaurant. I created a scene. And I started doing that stuff more and more as I got older. Like I became like more angry, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more outspoken. And I would do things and I would regret them, but I kept thinking, like, well, I won't do that again. That was crazy. I'll make sure I don't do that again. But I started working at this one restaurant, this one bar that was only a couple blocks from my house. And one night I was walking home and there was this dude he was sitting like on a park bench, and I was smoking a cigarette and I sang, "Started from the bottom, now we're here." And I looked, I didn't see this guy, and I look over and I started laughing because it was embarrassing. And, I think I'd had like a beer or two after work. So I was like a little loose. And he asked me for a cigarette and I was like, okay. So I sit down with this guy and he starts talking to me about philosophy and how he had been in University of Chicago, and we smoked a couple cigarettes and we're talking, and like I want to say he honestly, he kind of looked like Kurt Cobain, but like skinnier and more junky, like, if that's possible, more than Kurt Cobain. And he had like this scraggly blonde hair and he had a bag with him. And like, he said at one point, he was like, "Is it okay if I come to your apartment and take a bath?" And I was like, "No, man, I'm really sorry. Like, but you gotta understand, like, can't just bring you into my apartment." And he was like, "No, I get it. And he's like, "Well, hey," he's like, "Do you want to do some drugs?" And I was like, "Well, what do you got?" And he goes, "Heroin." And that was so crazy to me because no one had ever offered me heroin in my life. And I really felt like I was at this impasse. Like, I remember thinking, I was like, this is a test. I know this is a test. And I'm looking at this guy and I was like, "No, man, I'm good." And you guys, to this day, I don't know what it was. I know this sounds crazy and I don't condone this in any way, but there was something about this guy and the way his eyes were. I was like, "You're going to help this guy. You're going to let him take a bath at your apartment." And so after a couple minutes, I was like, "You know what, man, it's all right. You can come up." And he did. And he took a bath. And I asked him, I was like, "Look, I don't care if you come up, but like, please don't do any drugs in my apartment. That's all I ask of you." And he was like, cool, it's fine. So this guy comes up to the apartment where we've been talking about music too. So he's like, "Hey, let me put on this album. I really think you'll like it." And he puts it on and it's like some like weird, like metal album. And he takes a bath and he saw these poetry books as he walks in. So he asked me to read a poetry. So here I am in my apartment reading poetry to this random junkie guy who's taking a bath in my bathtub. And he was told like nothing. Let me just preface by saying nothing bad happened. We didn't hook up or anything. He just took a bath in my apartment. And as he gets done, I was like, "You know what? You can shoot the heroin if you want." Because I wanted to see him do it. And I bring this up because I had this weird fascination with all of this stuff my whole life growing up. And I knew at that point that I knew that I didn't drink like other people. I knew that I had a problem. And I knew that if I started doing hard drugs that there was a chance that I was never going to be able to stop. But I was so fascinated by it. And I wanted to see somebody do that. And so he did in my bathroom. And then he asked for a razor because he wanted to shave his face. And he tried to shave his face and he was, he couldn't do it. And so I shaved his face for him. And he went on his way. And I never saw him again. I never heard from him again. And I looked up that album that he played when he was in my apartment, this weird metal album, and the cover art for it was just this picture of Jesus. And that weirded me out so much. Like, this whole experience like really landed on me in some way. And I was not doing incredibly well at the time in the city. I wasn't saving money. I was just spending it all on partying. And after 2 years, I realized that I wasn't doing anything to accomplish any of the goals that I had set out with in my life. And, you know, like these dreams of being an actor and being an artist. And I hadn't done anything to help that along. And that hurt. Like, that hurt me to know that I did that to myself. And I think that was the first time in my life where I couldn't blame anybody else. I couldn't blame my parents, and it was just me. So that was the first time that I sort of recognized that I had an issue and I needed to get my shit together. So I moved back home for a short period of time. I kind of cleaned up my act. I wasn't drinking as much for a while, and I got an agent and I got a manager, and good things started happening for me. And that's been the story of my life on this road for most of the points, is like things will start to go really, really well. And then one little thing will go wrong, or maybe I don't get something that I think I want or deserve, and I'll just throw it all away and let it all go to shit. But so I seem to be doing a lot better. So eventually I moved back into the city with a couple girls. At this point I was doing a bunch of coke too, from being in the service industry. You know, it's just a huge part of it. And my roommates did a bunch of blow, and so I did a bunch of blow. Around this time, I, for some reason, decided I wanted to learn how to box. So I got a gym membership at a boxing gym, and I started going every day. And that kind of saved my butt for a while. I stopped doing as much coke. And I stopped drinking as much because I wanted to be there early in the morning. It was really doing something for me at the time, you know. And then, like most things, you know, it levels off. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. It's that thing of the new exciting shiny thing, and then it gets a little bit boring. And so now I'm going to slip back into my old habits and patterns. So I ended up getting hired at this boxing gym. And I worked there for a couple of years. And over this time, my drinking slowly but surely started escalating and getting worse and worse and worse. Oh, I will say before that, at this period of time, I booked my first feature film. And honestly, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I can't tell you guys, when you've been working for something like that. Now I'm of the opinion that I don't like to believe that we deserve anything as humans. I think that's a really dangerous thought to have. But when you work really hard for something and you finally see it start to take fruition, it's such a beautiful thing. And so I booked this feature film, and I really thought it was going to open a lot of doors for me in the acting world, you know. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this would be so great. Maybe I'll start booking regular work, and then I won't have to work these shitty jobs anymore. And I tried to tell myself that I'm not letting that happen in my head, but it's happening. And I think that's something too that I want to address, is like, I think in my life, I've always tried to cover up the experience that I'm having and say, this isn't the experience that you're having, when in fact it is. And I'm just prolonging the amount of hurt that it's going to cause because I'm not being honest with myself about what I'm experiencing and what I'm feeling. So I filmed this film. I went into a movie theater and I saw myself on screen, And it was a dream come true, literally. But like most things, when you're an alcoholic or an addict, like, it wasn't enough, you know, it wasn't good enough that I had that. I didn't get the recognition that I was hoping I would get. I didn't get the follow-up auditions that I was hoping that I would get. And that was really depressing in hindsight. So anyways, here I am working in Chicago at this boxing gym. I'm also working as a production assistant, maybe like once or twice a week. I was dating a guy at the time. I want to say this was about 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, when my drinking started getting worse and worse. And I can't tell you when, because at one point I started drinking every day and I started drinking through the day, you know, and then at one point I started drinking from morning to night. And it was one of those things that I remember when I first started drinking all day, every day, thinking, I'm just going to do this for like a month. You know, I just figured that was something that I would do for a short period of time until I was over it, and then I would stop. But, it just kept getting worse and worse. And I was doing a play at the time as well. I got cast in a play at some point in there, and I would literally run backstage in between scenes, and I would be drinking vodka, then going back out, and then eating a bunch of gum, spitting it out so hopefully no one could smell it on me, and then go back out on stage and do the next scene. And I told myself a long time ago that I would never let the drinking get in the way of me as a performer, and I would never have to ask my parents for money. Well, I definitely let it get in the way of me as a performer. And then eventually I did ask my parents for help. But it all sort of divulged into to the end of this run. I was seeing a therapist. I decided to start seeing a therapist because I felt like if I could just get my depression taken care of, then I could stop drinking finally, And I basically paid someone every week to tell me that I needed to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I guess I should say I did go to AA at one point. A couple of years before I actually finally got sober, and I went because I had a really drunken night that kind of scared me. And so I went to AA the next day. I cried the whole time I was there. It was only men in the meeting, but one of those guys bought me a big book, and they made me feel extremely welcome. But me and my profound wisdom went home and read the big book and decided that I figured it out and I understood it, so I didn't need to go anymore. And that didn't work. So, I was of the opinion at this point that, AA wasn't going to work for me. So I tried to do intensive outpatient in Chicago. I stopped drinking for probably 2 weeks, I think the longest. I was still smoking weed every day. But then I relapsed, and it just got much worse from there. And so there was definitely a couple months period in there where I would try to stop drinking, and I would get through the really, really bad withdrawals from it. And without fail, immediately would go and buy myself a beer to celebrate, I guess. And then anytime I would buy one thing, I would always be back with vodka. And so sorry. I just looked at the time. I'm so anyway, so things have gotten really bad, and I came up with this great plan. I decided that I was going to max out my credit card and then kill myself. So I was just going to use the rest of the money I had, keep this drinking thing going. Once it was gone, I would just kill myself. And that all sort of, this one night I was ready, you know, like I was done. I must have been having a particularly bad night, but I remember I put on the outfit that I wanted to die in, and I went in the bathtub, and I was trying to cut my wrist, but I had told this guy that I would go on a date with him, and he was like texting me or something. And so I happened to like reach out to him because for some reason I felt like I needed to explain to him why I felt like I needed to tell him. I didn't want to ghost him, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because apparently that was important to me in the moment. So I get on the phone with this guy, and like, honestly, I don't remember the call, but I remember that he happened to be in school to become a therapist, and he talked me down and out of whatever state I was in that night. And that's just one of those crazy, weird God things, you know, just another one of those little things that, and I still haven't talked to that man. I still need to, reach out to him. I would prefer to do it in person. That's probably why I haven't, because he's in Illinois. But, you know, that guy probably saved my life that night. And it's so interesting. I want to say that it's so interesting to me because when I was a kid, and I've said this, I've thought this as I've gone through recovery, that the hardest time of my life, when things were the most difficult, was when I was in high school. I want to say, like, the relationship I had with my mom was awful. She really, really put me through it. But I always had this hope. You know, like I always believed that things were going to get better once I wasn't there. Like, you know, I always had this hope that carried me through all that bullshit. And when I got to the end of my drinking, there was no hope left inside of me. I didn't see how things could be good anymore. I couldn't see the good in anything. And no matter how much I drank, because I remember when I used to drink, I would drink and I'd get that feeling that would come over me, you know, like I would suddenly be cleansed by the gods, and all my worries would just wash away, and I would be born anew, you know, and that never happened for me anymore. I just felt like shit all the time. It's like my brain figured out the loophole with the alcohol, and I couldn't lie to myself anymore with it. All I could do was just drink to the point where I was unconscious, because then I wouldn't have to be thinking at all, you know? I mean, I remember waking up at 10 o'clock and getting ready for my day, spending like an hour getting ready for the day, and then realizing that it's actually 10 p.m., you know? Because I just lost all sense of time and all sense of reality. And that really, when I realized that my mind was starting to slip, that really scared me. Like, really scared me. Because I looked terrible. But I guess I should say at this point too, you know, I was working out. I would run like 4 miles. I would run to the liquor store and buy some booze and run home. So in my head, I was thinking, well, I'm okay. You know, like I'm still kind of kicking. I could still get out. I can still, you know, box a couple rounds. But like, skin was burning off. I mean, I looked terrible. I saw a picture, actually had a picture just come up from 2 years ago on my timeline that I saw, and I was like, oh, wow. It's amazing how physically a person can change so much from that. Anyway, so I asked my dad, I asked my parents for help, is what ended up happening. Because I had to sell my car. I had maxed out this credit card. I couldn't afford my apartment anymore, so I had to move out. So I moved into my mom's house in the suburbs. She told me that I could stay there as long as I didn't drink. That didn't last very long. I mean, that didn't happen at all, really. But it didn't take very long for her to figure out that I was drinking. And eventually I came to Texas. My dad brought me to Texas. This is where he lives. And the treatment out here was a lot cheaper than it was in Illinois. So, you know, he kind of told me, you know, you can either go to rehab or you can be homeless. You know, we're not going to help you out if you don't want to help yourself. So he made me my dad made me set up everything. He made me switch my insurance. He made me call all these different rehab centers because he was like, I'm going to spend this money on you, but you got to prove to me that you want it. So I was like all wasted and making these phone calls, and I'd lock myself in the room and cry, you know. I just was really pitiful. I just was feeling really, really bad for myself at the time. And I went to treatment and I got out. So my last drink was January of 2019, but I did take mushrooms in October of last year. And I will say that when that happened, I had completely stopped working a program, completely stopped going to meetings. And I guess what's been really amazing. Sorry, I have to organize my like honestly, so many things come to mind just thinking about this past year. Getting to a point in my life where I can be alone with myself and I like it is amazing. I don't think I ever felt like that, ever. Even when I was young, I don't think I ever enjoyed being alone or being in my own company, because there was always that voice in my head that was telling me all the reasons why I'm not good enough and why I don't deserve anything. You know, it's that weird complex that we have of like thinking that, you know, where I think I'm the center of the universe, but I also hate myself. And what's incredible is in recovery, I can differentiate between that voice in my head and my true self, which I would consider my God self, myself that is without ego. You know, and it's weird little things. Someone told me the other day, they were like, you know what I do? I look in the mirror every day, because I used to look in the mirror and I would focus on all the things that I didn't like about myself. And now when I look in the mirror, I look at the things that I do like and I say them out loud, and I say that I like those things about myself. And I was like, you know, if somebody had told me that 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been like, wow, you're fucking nuts. But now I know that that is real. Like that shit works. I think I heard on Dopey, somebody said in one of the interviews, they said, you can't think your way into better action. You have to act your way into better thinking. And that's been my experience. And also like being able to give myself a break, you know, being able to know what I want in my life and like what I'm okay with in my life, and being happy with those things. You know, I don't have to be who my parents want me to be. I can be whoever I want to be. And that just goes along with those, you know, the same thing that I said at the beginning of this, that all the biggest lessons that I've been learning in my life are the things that I've been hearing my entire life. And I just never really heard them until something happens that really makes it land for me and makes it stick. Right now, I'm in a relationship with someone, and it's like, I swear to God, it's like the first time in my life that I'm like in a healthy relationship because of me. Like, I've been such a toxic person so much of my life that I was incapable of being in a healthy relationship. And I see it, and it's funny, I bring that up because I see my insanity so much more with that. Like, I see how my mind creates scenarios and things that don't exist, that aren't real. And all I can do is laugh at myself and think like, wow, you really are crazy, Caitlin. But it's a relief because now I can separate the things, and I can feel good about the things that I want to feel good about, because I know what I value in my life now, and I know where I stand, you know. I know what things are important to me. I know what I'm not going to do, and I know what I'm willing to do. And I never knew those things before, you know. It's interesting, like what I've been thinking about a lot lately is how, and you know, God bless our parents. Like, our parents do the best that they can with what they have, you know, and we're all just learning generation to generation. But I think about like how we introduce kids into this world, and I don't have any kids, so what do I know? But you know, I think about how the systems and the structures that we have in place are so, we give them so much credit when it's not really real. When the real stuff we have inside of us all along, and we didn't really know it, you know, until we know it. I love the quote, or, you know, you'll hear people in AA say like, if you can't see God in the person sitting next to you, then you're not going to see God, you know? And I find that to be so true because my ability to connect with other people and have those rare moments of total transparency and egolessness, to me, that's the good stuff, you know. Like, we should all be striving for that all the time. I don't know if I sound like totally, I'm definitely one of those woo-woo people. I am. So I apologize if that bothers anyone, but I don't know. I'm like, right now I'm so full of gratitude for the journey that I've been on. I know it could have been a lot worse, you know. And that's a funny thing is like, and I'll share this because maybe it'll land with somebody else too. You know, when I was seeing this therapist at the time, you know, she kept telling me, you know, that I needed to go to rehab, and I told her, well, you know, I've never been arrested. I've never even gotten a DWI. You know, I'm not like those people. And she goes, okay, so what is it going to take for you? What is rock bottom going to look like for you? How bad will things get before you decide to get help? And for some reason that just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I realized in that moment that I was waiting for something really, really bad to happen so that I felt justified in getting help. Like, I felt like I wasn't bad enough yet, you know? I think in a lot of ways, I became the person that I wanted to be. I emulated these figures in my life because I thought they were bad and cool, and like I wanted to be like that, and I wanted to be invincible, and I wanted to be untouchable, and I wanted people to be afraid of me because I was so afraid of everyone. You know, I didn't realize until I got sober that every single person that I meet, or not anymore, but before, every single person that I met, I automatically didn't trust you, thought that you were going to do something to harm me, and I needed to figure out what it was before it happened so that I could turn it around on you, you know? Like, that's exhausting and crazy. But that's how I took in the world before. And I'm not, you know, now the way I experience life, I can breathe. I don't feel like I'm rushing all the time. Figuring out how to be present and experience the moment, even if it sucks, you know. I try to say to myself, like, wow, what an interesting experience I'm having. This is different. Even if it's not a pleasant one, you know. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up around there. I just said a lot of stuff. Hopefully that resonated with some people, but again, I'm extremely grateful to be talking to you guys, and thanks for listening to me. And if anything, you know, this is another great experience that I'm having in my life. So thank you.
I wanna take a walk around the world. I wonder, would it do me any good? Until I get some money in my pocket, then I guess I'll just have to walk around my neighborhood. But I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be good so bad, so bad. Yeah, I wanna be good so bad. But bad desire is all I've ever had. And I wanna take a ride up in the sky and watch all of the aeroplanes just pass me by. And I wanna see a Learjet liner take a dive, just to show all of these people what it means to be alive. But I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be good so bad, so bad. Yeah, I wanna be good so bad. But bad desire is all I've ever had. And my shadow's getting smaller and smaller. And it's high noon where I stand. Oh, my shadow's getting smaller and smaller. But it's high noon where I stand. And I wonder, would they pay it any mind when I leave this busted city far behind? I'll take the high road, however far it winds, because peace and love are very, very, very hard to find. But I wanna be good so bad. I wanna be good so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. But bad desire is all I've ever had. And these suckers make me mad. And it's all I've ever had. And it's all I've ever had. And I wanna call my dad. And it's all I've ever had. And I wanna call my dad. And it's all I've ever had. and it's all I've ever had. And I wanna call my dad, and it's all I've ever had. And I wanna call my dad, and it's all I've ever had. And it's all I've ever had.